Welcome to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG, your favourite Formula 1 podcast produced by a British biased bloke with a massive Swede full of very questionable wheel knowledge. Broadcast live on YouTube and after the fact on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We have a good old natter about each and every Grand Prix of the season. My name's Tommo, let's talk about it. For the final time in 2025, welcome to TOMMO'S pre-race CHINWAG, this time for the 2025 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Thank you all for joining me here on YouTube. Francine Mitsovo, Acting, Crowley Halita, Miles, Casper Emerald, Aces, and the rest of you, however you are consuming this podcast. Be that live on YouTube, after the fact on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however you do it. Make sure you interact, subscribe, comment, do whatever, you know. Spotify Wrap today as well. If I'm in your Spotify Wrap, shout me out and I'll give you a little share. Thank you all for joining me. We've had a hell of a season, a hell of an up and down season in 2025, haven't we? And we have three protagonists still in with a chance of winning it all. And we go to Abu Dhabi once again for another title showdown. I'm so excited for this. It really could go any way. There is an advantage for Lando Norris, of course. 12 points is significant over Max Verstappen, 16 over Oscar Piastri. But as we found out in 2010, as we found out in 2021, it's not done until it's done. This is big. This is big. I am very excited for this one. Yes, Trimo, exactly. I got a haircut just for the occasion as well. Well overdue a haircut. Well overdue a haircut. But yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Let's get into the meat and bones of round 24, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. In the dunes, in the desert. And of course, I will be, there is a poll on the YouTube live with the three names, Norris, Verstappen and Piastri, who will win the 2025 F1 World Championship. I will let that poll play out over the course of the stream. And by the end, we will decide who your prediction is. I will give my prediction, of course, who I think is not only going to win the race, but win the championship, because they might be different. They might well be different, okay? 2025, round 24, Abu Dhabi. I'm excited for this one. Right, around the Yas Marina circuit in the United Arab Emirates, 5.28 kilometres, 58 laps on the C3, 4 and 5 compounds, a much softer range around Abu Dhabi this time out compared to Qatar, certainly not pulling the same level of G-force, putting the same amount of pressure through the tyres, so we can go much softer compound range. Not the C6, not the softest of the soft that was introduced this year, but still very, very soft. We'll see how that changes things. Of course, the weather, pretty predictable. It's going to be hot. It's going to be dry. Highs of, 26 Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and lows of 23, 24 degrees. So not too many unknowns here, and obviously we have the end of season test in Abu Dhabi. These teams know this circuit very well, and we're getting a full FP1, 2 and 3, which I don't know, who does that play into anyone's favour in particular? I'm not so sure. There is a bit less likely to be things a bit out of the blue going on. We do know that Oscar Piastri will not be in his car for FP1. There will be a driver. I'm not sure if it's been confirmed yet, chat. Have McLaren confirmed who's taking his seat for FP1? Because, of course, there is a mandatory allocation of FP1 slots you have to give to rookies. So Oscar's having to serve his at the finale, which isn't ideal, but at least there are 3 FP1 sessions. Is it Pato? I imagine it would be Pato. Fornaroli would be cool because he has just been announced as a McLaren Junior reserve test driver, that kind of capacity. But I imagine it's Pato O'Ward. Most of you are saying Pato O'Ward in chat. I don't know if it's confirmed, but it's probably going to be Pato. And it's always good to see Pato in an F1 car, but of course not ideal preparation for young Oscar Piastri. But yeah, Yas Marina, a very flat circuit. We've got that long banked turn 9 now, which can be pretty cool, actually. You can take a few different lines. We do see some overtakes there, which is nice. Abu Dhabi is one of them tracks where, I mean, there's not a plethora of overtaking opportunities. Obviously, turn 6 and turn 9 are probably the two biggest. Maybe into turn 5 if you're Max Verstappen on the last lap of the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. But, of course, he had a big tyre advantage, didn't he? So, not really seeing too many moves there. And, of course, the Marina section, you don't really see any overtakes through that final section of the track. But over a lap, and qualifying is hugely important, has been hugely important this season throughout the year as this regulation cycle's gone on and more dirty air that these cars are kicking out, harder to overtake. Now is more important than ever. I may well do a post-quali CHINWAG. I might have to, regardless of who qualifies where, because this is going to be a hyper intense, hyper competitive qualifying session in Abu Dhabi. I'm looking forward to it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Come on, turn 9's a sweeper. Turn 9 is a sweeper, Crowley. You're right, but you can still get a move done if you get a good run out of 7 and through 8, which 8 isn't really a corner, but for some reason it's called a corner. Who do I think will win, Badri? Well, we'll get onto that. We'll get onto that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? Let's lock in. I'm only 6 minutes in. No spoilers too early on. Right, so that's where we're racing. 58 laps around Abu Dhabi. But what about last time? Well, as you can see, Lando Norris was P1 ahead of Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc in their Ferraris in P2 and 3 respectively. This championship, at least from a constructor's point of view, went down to the absolute wire. McLaren managed to snatch it just at the end. It was tight. It was close on pit stop timings. Lando managed to stay ahead of Carlos. And how Ferrari will dream that they could be in this kind of position in 2025 come the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Because right now, it looks like they're in a bit of shambles, which is kind of crazy. Because it's a good point I saw made from Nicola, actually, on the Midweek F1 podcast. You know, okay, Ferrari might have stopped development and all that, but like Williams haven't really developed their car all season, and they've just come off a blinding result for Carlos Sainz. So it's not really an excuse. The execution at Ferrari has been horrific as of late, and they need a big result. And certainly Max and Oscar need Ferrari and Mercedes to kind of wake up and factor in and be a nuisance to Lando, because otherwise that 12-point gap is they need other people to finish ahead of Lando as well as them two, is what I'm saying. And right now Ferrari don't look like they're gonna be able to help Max and Oscar's calls. Maybe Mercedes, maybe George, maybe Kimi, but even then seems like a long shot. But yeah, last time out Lando took pole by a couple of tenths over Oscar, and then of course into turn 1 Max went for a lunge on Oscar, spun him out, ended Oscar's race and Max's race essentially. So yeah, Lando was fairly comfortable in the end. It did mean that the Ferraris could double team and they could gang up on him a little bit, which certainly made for a slightly intense, pressurised end. Not what Zach Brown would have wanted, but that made the outpouring of emotion so much more intense at the end. So yeah, it was an easy Constructors' Championship this year. It was not easy last year, but they got it done in the end. It's mad to think Ferrari could have won the Constructors last year, and look at where they are now. It just kind of doesn't make all that much sense, but here we are. So that is what happened last time out. Let's briefly go back to full screen for a bit. Got a few supers. Thank you, Dylan, for the super. Scenes when Kimi holds Max up for the entire race. Well, look, of course, there's so many permutations. There's so many conspiracies. I spoke about Kimi's the backlash towards Kimi. I put a video out. Just a very chatty, low edit one yesterday, just covering it. Essentially, disappointing, very disappointing, but not surprising. Unfortunately, that is just kind of the world we live in, and you say things and it provokes a reaction, and vast majority of that reaction might be critical, but is fair, and you get a small vocal minority who just take it way too far, and it's sad. But hopefully Kimi's in good spirits this time out, and especially with Red Bull having two teams, you can imagine the conspiracy theories that could potentially come out of this weekend, which I'm not even going to speculate on until we're actually in that situation, if things pan out, because things are going to be weird, right? One thing you can rely on in F1 is, I say this all the time, don't I? The chance of nothing unlikely happening is in itself unlikely. The chance of this just being a comfortable, clean, no drama weekend for anyone, not just the front three, for anyone, is in itself very unlikely. So I'm sure there'll be some shenanigans and some mad stuff going on. Thank you, Spark, as well, for the super chat. Max wins the race. Lando wins the title, which is very possible because, of course, it's 7 points between P1 P2, but it's 12 points between Lando and Max. So even if Max wins, as long as Lando gets even a P3, that will do the job. That will do the job. But if they do end up level on points and Max wins, which would mean Max P1, Lando P4, I want to say. Is that right? Difference between... No, that's not right, is it? Is it? No, it's not. Either way, if there was some way Max won and Lando... I don't think there is a mathematical way, is there? 12 points. So that means there'd be 13 between them, but there's not a 13-point gap between... Is there? Oh, for crying out loud. What I'm saying is, because Max, Lando and Oscar all have the same number of wins, if there's some way that Max can win the race and Lando can finish on the same number of points as Max, Max would win the title because he had more wins. No, never level on points if Max wins the race. Yeah, okay, fine. My exceptional math skills on the spot. I mean, I'm on the spot here. Come on, let's not dig me out too much, right? Oh dearie me. Thank you, Ragav, for the super chat. McLaren slipped and gave Max a chance, but shouldn't the drivers have sealed the title by now? In that dominant car, they should be 1-2 everywhere. Look, I think you make a good point, Ragav. I think as much as McLaren have been guilty of slipping up, the drivers have not got their hands clean either. Of course, Lando's made many a mistake throughout the course of the season, hence why, especially at the start of the year, Oscar was able to lead for 15 Grand Prix this season, over 15 rounds in total. I think Oscar's led this championship. And then, of course, Oscar's struggles as of late, him putting it in the wall in Baku, and he's had his fair share. His mistakes have been more condensed into a period in the season, and Lando kind of switched it on opposite to Oscar in that moment, and Lando's had not the cleanest last couple of weekends either. So yeah, I mean, drivers absolutely, like, for it to have come down to this, Max needed both McLaren and both of their drivers to be making too many mistakes, and that is exactly what has happened. So yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, Ragav. You're not wrong. As much as, again, it's easy to dog on McLaren a bit more because they're a team as well and they're an organisation, and it's a bit more like, it feels like a little bit less personal. Ultimately, Lando and Oscar have also had imperfect seasons. I thank you, Mr. Hoppy, for the super chat. Much appreciated. There is an air of darkness coming into this weekend. Exciting championship finale, yes, but with what happened to Antonelli and the controversy over papaya rules, it feels to me like there's a shadow over the whole event. Yeah, I mean, again, the Antonelli stuff is unacceptable. It needs to be called out, and it's a sad reflection on society ultimately, that you get people who feel emboldened to do nonsense like this, and I hope it's. I kind of get what you mean, Hoppy, because in another way that you've not mentioned in your comment, but I just hope that whatever happens in this race, it's like clean and there's not like controversy. And I really hope that no driver has a accident, has contact with one of the three championship protagonists. I hope that, look, from an entertainment point of view and just something mad happening, great. Unfortunately, you do have to accept that, let's say, I don't know, Albon has a run-in with Norris and it results in Norris not winning the championship, for example. If anyone else has a run-in with Max, or someone else has a run-in with Oscar, and Oscar's, there's an opportunity for Oscar to win the championship and someone else gets in the way, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? You know that's going to, people are going to, there are a small subset of people who are going to take it way too far and not just, taking the sporting spectacle and start throwing harassment at drivers and being just absolute scumbags on the internet. And that is a shame that we can't just, you have to anticipate that that's going to come. So as much as from an entertainment point of view, I want something mad to happen. Also, if it is just clean and there's no craziness, and certainly, strategic things can play out and good racing will to will. You just know that whatever happens, to be honest, whatever happens, there's going to be some people who are just going to act like absolute twats. But it is what it is. It is what it is. So hopefully that's not massively the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is, sadly. And thank you again, Ragav. As someone whose GOAT is Lewis, Carlos being dropped was one of the most unfair in F1 history. The madness in breaking the best driver lineup for this. And it's worked out for Carlos, hasn't it? I mean, you got to say it's worked out for Carlos, at least in the short term. And, you know, Williams with a Mercedes power unit. I'll tell you what, like, everyone criticised or at least questioned Lewis's move to Mercedes from McLaren, and it worked out a treat. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to the same extent for Carlos Sainz, where he wins, you know, half a dozen world titles, but maybe a move that everyone was like, wow, that's a massive downgrade. What a shame for Carlos, poor Carlos. It might actually work out all right for him. Williams could be quicker than Ferrari next year. Who knows what the Ferrari's power unit's going to be like, but the anticipation the Mercedes power unit's going to be better. And you look at Williams' progress and you've got to say, maybe. You never know. Thank you, Mango, as well. How much do we talk about Spain if Max loses by less than 9 points? That has, of course, been spoken a lot about in the media. The idea that, yeah, of course, you do the straight-up maths, and the points that Max lost in Spain from his red miss moment hitting George could come back to bite him. I mean, obviously, in reality, that's not how reality works. Like, the butterfly effect of him not doing that, then he could have had other incidents, blah, 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 right? But the fundamental point is that, yes, he's given away those 9 points, and that could make the difference. And look, I guess it's the same as, you know, when you reflect on 2021, you know, that was a year, and as much as it was defined in so many people's minds, understandably so, by what happened in Abu Dhabi, there were so many incidents throughout the year. There was Silverstone, there was Brazil, there was Monza, there was, like, Azerbaijan, the brake magic. Like, there's so many incidents throughout that year that, oh, if that had gone one way or that had gone the other way, you know, it would have made a difference. And that's true. I mean, I don't think Max is the kind of character, personality who will dwell on Spain if it ends up being within 9 points, you know, because that doesn't serve him. There's no value to him from that. And you could look at it that way, and I called it out at the time. I thought, you know, it was very clear what he'd done, and yeah, I mean, it will certainly be a talking point. It will certainly be a talking point if it is within 9 points. I can tell you that for a fact. So, how much do we talk about Spain? I think overall it will get mentioned a lot. I agree. And thank you, Han, for the money for the trim. Did you know, obviously, YouTube takes their cut of super chats. So you could have just given me that £2 yourself. But never mind. And thank you, Rin Ketic. Doesn't Adam Norris sponsor McLaren? So you're saying like Lando's dad? Because Lando's dad owns Pure Electric, which from my understanding, and I don't know the details. So Pure Electric, I think, sponsor Lando, in terms of that logo's on his helmet, right? And not the team itself. I've heard plenty of speculation and talk of how, you know, Lando's dad has somehow funded the team. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know the details. All I know is that he owns Pure Electric, which is a personal sponsor for Lando, in the same way that AlphaTauri is a personal sponsor for Max. Obviously, Red Bull own AlphaTauri, whereas Lando's dad owns Pure Electric. But you know what I mean. In the same way that, is it with Oscar, his dad owns that HP Tuners, which I don't know if they sponsored, but they sponsored him throughout his junior career, and then I don't think they do anymore. But that's his dad, Oscar's dad's company. So yeah, that's it. HP Tuners. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that what I do think is that all drivers have to bring money at some point and to different extents. You know, I think it's been well documented that Lando, you know, of course he had opportunities. He had a dad in a very financially good position, as did Oscar. And you've got parents there on both sides who've supported their careers and helped put them through. Obviously, Max had a ex-F1 driver as a dad, which is always going to help as well and open doors. So let's not get it twisted. These are all privileged, very privileged, way more privileged than the vast majority of us watching individuals. And if I'd grown up with a millionaire mum, millionaire dad, then I probably would have asked them to fund a racing career for me as well. So I can't hate the game, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of is what it is, and this sport will always be expensive. And there will always be just who's more privileged, but no one's not privileged, that's for sure. You do need a degree of privilege. Anyone, even, I talk about Lewis and Esteban being two of the drivers who have come from the least, but they were still privileged to have parents who were prepared to make those sacrifices. That is a privilege in itself, But yeah. Anyway, right, okay, let's get back to, thank you all for the super chats. Going to carry on with the pre-race and look at the quali head-to-heads. Reflect, only one more to go, so these numbers aren't going to massively change after Abu Dhabi and the averages over the course of the season. So we've got Verstappen, Tsunoda is 6/10. Alonso over Stroll by just over 3/10. Russell over Antonelli by 2.5. Gasly over Colapinto by 2/10. Leclerc over Hamilton by just under 2. Hadjar over Lawson by just over 1.5. Behrman over Ocon by between 1 and 1.5. And then Hulkenberg Bortoletto within a tenth, just under a tenth, 70 thousandths. And then Sainz Albon, Norris Piastri, they're essentially a dead heat. They're equal 6 thousandths and 4 thousandths between those two pairings. So we will see how they pan out. But certainly, yeah, you got to say over the course of the year, in the same way that, Piastri had consistency at the start of the year, started to wobble a bit. Albon's been wobbling as of late as well. And it's all kind of equaled out between those McLaren and Williams teammates. So we'll see how this plays out and see what these numbers look like after Saturday, which is, again, why it makes sense to do a little quali stream. We can kind of reflect on this a little bit, focusing on these numbers, but also focusing on the importance of where everyone's lining up. Because, it takes one stinker Norris quali. If he dips in Q2 or something, or has a bad Q3, then damn, that's going to be chaos. I don't think that's going to happen because Lando's one lap pace, but you just never know. A bit of traffic, bit of track limits. Even if he does everything right himself, there is plenty of opportunity for things to go wrong. Plenty of opportunity. Right, so that's the quali head-to-heads. Bosch, 29 out of 30 sessions done. And these are the driver standards. Just to remind us, again, the ones that matter. Norris 408, Verstappen 396, Piastri 392. Those are the important ones. None of the others really matter. More of an ego thing. I mean, Hadjar, he said post-race he really wants to hold on to P10, as he should, because he's had a fantastic season, but then Hulkenberg's on 49, Alonso's 48, Hadjar 51, so it is very, very tight there. But yes, hopefully Colapinto can get a point as well. That'd be nice. I think it'd be deserved. I think Colapinto merits a point for how relatively close he's been to Gasly, given his lack of preparation, so that would be nice to see. But yeah, Norris, Verstappen, Piastri split by 16 points. And team standings, well, of course, McLaren have well wrapped the constructors, so that's job done. Mercedes, Red Bull, I mean, a terrible weekend for Mercedes, and Yuki delivering a superb result on his last drive as an F1 driver around the track where he got his P4, which is his best finishing result in F1, by the way, in 2021, of course. If he can turn up anywhere, maybe it's here. You could maybe see Red Bull snatch P2. I don't think it's likely, but stranger things have happened, and Ferrari, basically guaranteed fourth. They might actually be mathematically guaranteed fourth. I think they are, aren't they? Yeah, because even if Charles got 25 to win, say, for example, and Lewis got second with 18, they would be 1 point short of where Red Bull are already, which is kind of crazy. Is Synodium in his last race? Do you reckon alternate? I mean, we've all got to be praying for it, surely. Come on. Synodium, because not only would that be amazing for Yuki, but also it would be amazing for the championship unpredictability. Because if he's finishing if he's getting a Synodium then that means Verstappen, Piastri and Norris are not locking out the podium. Williams looking good for P5. Racing Bull's looking good for P6. And then, yeah, Aston Haas split by 7 points now, which, again, Ollie's bad pit stop in Qatar looks like that's really maybe the defining thing that ends their push for P7, which I still really want Haas to get P7. Because, you know, they're the minnows. I want to see the minnows thrive, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's how the team standings are looking as of right now. So let's actually do a little sidestep, shall we? Before we get into bangers and clangers, this is of course the final weekend of the season. We have 3 protagonists. For the first time, at least first time we've had more than 2 going into the finale since 2010, which is a very long time ago, where Fernando Alonso was leading by, I want to say I think it was like 15 points clear of Seb, who won it in the end. It was Fernando, it was Webber, it was Vettel, and then Hamilton. Hamilton was an outside chance, mathematically possible, but very much an outside chance. In 12, there was only Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel, of course. So, let's discuss, shall we, the case. First of all, for Lando Norris. Why Lando Norris will probably win this title. Certainly, I think odds-on bookies, you got to say, a 12-point advantage is huge. And as much as he hasn't had the cleanest last couple of weekends, obviously Vegas was big punished with disqualification for both McLaren cars. And, yeah, just the mistakes in quali, kind of messy quali, messed up his lap. And then lost position at the start to Verstappen as well. You know, I think Lando's got an advantage, and I think over a lap he can trust his pace, his underlying pace. He's always been quick around Abu Dhabi as well. It's just whether he can, you know, keep his head in the game. Keep his head in the game, keep focused, keep settled. Again, P3 will do it regardless of what Max and Oscar do. He just needs to get on that podium, make sure there's no Ferrari or George Russell or Kimi Antonelli in between him and his fellow protagonists. So it's looking good for Lando. Again, he absolutely has the pace. Can he execute it? Can he get it done? Can he have a clean... And this is just as much, you know, the case for Lando, but also Lando's side of the garage, Will Joseph... And the remaining team, the pit crew, obviously they share the pit crew, of course. But make sure good pit stops. McLaren are going to feel the pressure to deliver pit stops for both of their drivers. But probably a little bit more pressure for Lando because he is leading. At the end of the day, Oscar is behind Max. Lando's the one leading with a big advantage. It's going to be high pressure pit stop for both of them, don't get me wrong. But I think for Lando, even more so, it's just that little bit extra. So all things need to come together because you know there's a very good chance that Max and Red Bull maximise their weekend. You've got to anticipate they're going to maximise their weekend. And Lando just needs to keep going as quickly as he typically does because he's very quick over a lap. I think that's his biggest strength. If you lose position, lap 1, don't do anything silly. You know, if Max is going to be aggressive with him, if Oscar's going to be aggressive with him, I guess that's what's interesting about having a third person in there because say Max goes for a lunge and there's contact and say Norris and Verstappen double DNF, for example, right? Well, then Oscar has an amazing chance to win the title. So it's a little bit different. If there were just 2, say it was just Norris and Verstappen, Norris could, you know, allow Max to be aggressive, and if they crash into each other, well, he'll still win the title. But when you've got this third driver in there, that complicates things a little bit more. So, of course, it feels very much like Lando's to lose. It's also McLaren's to lose, ultimately, because Lando could definitely hold up his end of the bargain. You know, front row in qualifying, clean race, and then a bad pit stop, a badly timed safety car. As we know, a badly timed safety car around Abu Dhabi can really change things. Because we all forget that 21 race was pretty dull, wasn't it? It was comfortable for Lewis until it wasn't. So, And then maybe you throw in you throw in a Sonoda, a Russell. You know Russell's going to drive for himself, absolutely. You know Sonoda's going to, do what he can to help Max. And maybe we see some of that shenanigans, but I'll save that for the Verstappen. The case for Verstappen, because the case for Norris is pretty straightforward. He just needs to maximise his weekend, but not do anything crazy, and try and just have that whole each race as it comes mentality. I think that's ultimately what's going to serve him best, because Lando on a good day will deliver a podium, and that's all he needs. He just needs a good day. But obviously the noise and the fact I'm so excited. I'm buzzing for this, and it does feel like it should be Lando should get it done, but not if Max Verstappen's got anything to say about it. I thought I'd pick an ominous picture of Max just staring at me, actually. I'm like, geez, man, calm down. Yeah, look, Red Bull, Max, Abu Dhabi, 3 FP sessions, should be able to get the car in a good window, and then it's just a matter of, do you roll the dice? Do you go for something a little bit different? Do you... I mean, qualifying is so important, obviously. Obviously, qualifying is massively important. How do you not only finish ahead of Lando, but try and bring other people into it? Now, of course, Lewis Hamilton did this in 2016, where he tried to back up Nico Rosberg into Sebastian Vettel to try and get Vettel to overtake Rosberg. Didn't work out. In the end, Rosberg won the title, but Lewis played the hand he was dealt, and Max will do whatever he can to win the title, but he knows that beating Lando isn't enough. So I don't know. I do wonder how much Max is going to be just thinking about his own race and just thinking about winning, whether he will have any capacity and whether Red Bull will have any capacity. Well, Red Bull certainly will, because they could potentially use Yuki. And I'm thinking, like with Checo, you leave Yuki out on a hard tyre at the start, everyone comes into pit, then you use Yuki to hold up Norris, hold up Piastri potentially. But again, it's in Max's hands to, he finishes ahead of Piastri. There's nothing Piastri can do because he's already ahead of Piastri. Norris is the problem for Max. So Red Bull would be fully within their rights to use Yuki as a pawn in this, ultimately. And it would be a great parting gift from Yuki to Red Bull. In many ways, again, the same way that they did with Checo in 2021. The game's the game, and McLaren aren't going to be able to use Piastri in the same way, because until the last lap, there is always a chance that something happens and Piastri could still win the title for himself. So I don't think McLaren will be able to get away. They're not going to be able to get away. And again, they've said it enough times on record that there's no way they can go back on it and start asking Piastri to help Lando. Like, that's not going to happen. That's clearly not going to happen. So Red Bull obviously do have Yuki, who hasn't been able to help really from a points point of view in the championship, but could maybe be used strategically. And of course, I mean, Ricardo, you say Hadjar will also help. I mean, obviously having racing bulls out there as well, who are racing their own championship for P6, but of course Hadjar is already announced as a Red Bull Racing driver for next year, and Red Bull own both of those teams, and that's an advantage Red Bull have. They're not going to out and out make calls for that team, but that team know what side their bread is buttered. Not in the same way. There's always going to be connections between teams, right? Sharing engines and stuff like this, but obviously Red Bull and Racing Bulls is very different. So, yeah, Red Bull, if they want Max to win this title, again, they need to try and play those cards to their advantage in a fair way. Because, look, at the same time, some people might have looked at Perez holding up Hamilton last year and thought that wasn't fair. I disagree. I think you use what you can to get the job done, and Checo defended very valiantly. He's a legend, as Max said in the moment. And if they can do the same with Yuki, then great. If we start seeing, one of the racing bulls do the same thing, I think that's certainly more questionable, because you are meant to have all of these teams be entirely separate. But, game is game. Exactly, Oliver. Game is game. But yeah, Max, he's got to feel good about his chances of securing a big result. And he doesn't have that same pressure, does he? That Lando and, well, we'll talk about Oscar in a bit, but certainly Lando, leading the championship. Max has been here, done that, and he's been here in the most high pressure of circumstances and gotten through it. So, yeah, I think he's going to drive with a freedom which can only help his cause that Lando will not. I'm so excited for this. And they've got the three of them in the pre-race presser tomorrow as well, which I will definitely be tuning in for. I cannot wait. And that would be super exciting. I'd love to see that. But yes, that is the case, I think, pretty well for Max Verstappen. And then finally, Oscar Piastri, who has led this championship more than anyone else this year. Obviously, after Baku, things seem to fall apart out of nowhere and have suddenly picked up again in Qatar. Will we ever get a real answer to what happened to Oscar? And I think also, I don't think there is one answer. In reality, I think it's probably a number of factors that have hurt Oscar as of late. But he has just come off of a worldy performance in Qatar where he was the quickest of anyone. So, look, he qualified a couple of tenths behind Lando last year. We never got to see his race pace around Abu Dhabi. But you would think there's a lot. It's a big ask for Oscar to out-qualify Lando. But again, he doesn't have that pressure now, that expectation. He's 16 points down. He's behind not just Lando, but also Max. So he will be able to drive, I think, with certainly more freedom than Lando. That's for sure. Vettel was 15 points behind in 2010 and won the title. Oscar's 16 points behind, and stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened. Now, I do... Again, they can't expect Oscar to play a role in helping Lando win the championship unless we are literally talking. There is one very specific permutation where Max is winning the race, someone else is second, let's say Yuki, because why not? Hopium, of course. Oscar is P3 and Lando is P4. Now, in that instance, Max Verstappen wins the race and also the title. If Oscar was to concede P3 to Lando Norris, then Lando would win the title. And in that instance, I absolutely think Oscar would do that on the last lap. Then it would just take like a safety car, which would mean he wouldn't be able to give him the place because safety car, which would be crazy. But again, there's so many ways this could play out insanely, which is kind of what I want, to be honest. Look, throughout the course of the season, I think the story of Max coming back and winning would be amazing. And I think he's been unquestionably the strongest of the three drivers over the course of the year. Apart from his head loss moment in Spain, he's been pretty faultless. Lando's obviously shown resilience and bounced back and shown some impeccable one-lap pace and being able to lead from the front. Oscar has still massively impressed me this year. Like, to do this in your third season, and now that he's got 3 seasons in, I think from next year onwards, I don't think we can really talk about Oscar being new anymore. Like, in your 4th year at the same team as well, right, I'm expecting levels from Oscar now that can match Lando and if not beat Lando. But in your 3rd year, you're still working on a few things, and I think that I'm sure Oscar will go back to the drawing board and try and work out what happened. And I hope for his case it is something in his control that he can work on, and it isn't something that was maybe wrong with a car that wasn't diagnosed or whatever. Right? There's so many different theories on that. But Oscar's still a hell of a driver. Like the move he put on Antonelli even in Qatar, right? The lunge, just getting it done, Lando showed that it wasn't actually that easy to get past Antonelli. Obviously, Antonelli was helped by, he had a bit more toe from Sainz at the time. But yeah, I think as much as it's been very, very disappointing as of late, in part of the reason that's because he set such a high standard for the first 15 rounds of the year, 16 rounds of the year, really. And there's a hell of a driver in there, calm under pressure. Obviously, there's a lot going on inside, but also he's third. He's behind the curve. He's 16 points back. Maybe that freedom. And if things just go a little bit weird, if things just play out a little bit unusually, then perhaps Oscar can still get it done. And that would be scenes. That would be absolute scenes if Oscar managed to somehow claw it back. I'm excited. I can't. I'm excited. Right. Okay. Back to full screen. Couple of super chats. Let's get through it. Thank you. Impran. P10 battle is pretty spicy for the drivers. Yes, of course I did. Yeah. Hadjar on 51. Alonso on 48. Hulkenberg on 49, I want to say. I don't know why I did it in that order. But yes, spicy doesn't actually mean anything, but for them, it will be meaningful for their Wikipedia pages in the future, looking back at this 2025 season, seeing Hadjar in P10 instead of P12. He'll like the look of that. Ragav, thank you again. Tomo, Carlos season needs a video, P18 to P9 in a Williams. Yeah, I definitely could see that there's an interesting story, I think, looking at Carlos's, but also maybe Alex's as well, like almost the tale of two halves, right? Like analysing Alex's starts of the year and Carlos's starts of the year, but also analysing and like looking at how much, because I feel like both of them have got very unlucky quite a lot. Like obviously Carlos at the start of the year, but I think Alex as of late, don't get me wrong, he's been messing up as well, but he's also had his fair share of stinky luck and all. So that would be an interesting one to analyse, to really, put a proper Williams video together. I might well do that, Ragav. Thank you for the suggestion. And thank you, Mr. Hoppy, again, for a super chat. Jensen was the first driver, Jensen Button, to press the DRS button. That's a lot of middle names. Very good. Very good. But who will be the last driver to press it? Who will be the last driver to press the DRS button? So, maybe Colapinto, if he's at the back, I guess. Probably, maybe. Probably whoever's at the back would be the last, right? Surely. To press. I don't know who you lot think. I mean, it's a random question, but Burkosaurus thinks Ocon. There's a young driver's test after the race. True. Oh, Ventura. Yeah, that's true, actually. Which I think that Hadjar is getting dispensation. Don't quote me on this, even though I'm putting it out on the internet in a live stream. I'm pretty sure Hadjar is going to be able to race in that, not race, but drive in that postseason test for Red Bull. Which, if that is the case, then that's good for him. That's a little bit of extra prep. Not if he's lapped. Oh, yeah, true, Luke. Not if he's lapped. Yeah, that's... So who... Let me have a look last year, actually. Right, 2024. We've gone on a bit of a... But I'm liking this little sidestep before we get into the bangers and clangers. This is going to be a long pre-race, but it's the final race of the season, so come on. Last time out, the entire field up to P10, which was Oscar Piastri, obviously where he got spun out by Max. So the entire top 10 were on the same lap, but from P11 down, all got lapped. So who's finishing like basically P10? I'm going to say Fernando Alonso is the last person to press the DRS button. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying Fernando Alonso, lock it in, all right? You heard it here first. Okay, right. Should we get into bangers and clangers then for the 2025 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? Starting with my predictions, then looking at yours. We're not looking at the championship just now. We are looking at this race in isolation. And for me, the race winner of the 2025 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, I'm going Oscar. I think Oscar will win this race. Do I think he'll win the championship? Let's hold it. But I think Oscar, driving with a bit of freedom, He's got a quick car underneath him, more freedom relative to Lando, and the chance of Lando and Max tangling somehow, I think that could play into his favour. I'm going Oscar to win the race. That's who I am predicting. But what about you? Well, 1,006 of you voted. Thank you for voting again. Thank you for all of your votes across all of the CHINWAGs this year. If you're missing the polls, make sure you subscribe to the Tommo YouTube channel. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Tommo McCluskey. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Tommo McCluskey, where I sometimes remember to post the polls. Not all the time. Usually I forget. But I will try my best to do better on Instagram next year. 1,006 of you voted. And your race winner for the 2025 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is Max Verstappen with 53% of the vote, 26% of the vote to Lando Norris, 18% of the vote to Oscar Piastri. No meaningful vote for anybody else. So you think Max is going to win the race? Do you think Max is going to win the championship? Well, the poll is still going on the YouTube live stream. 1,900 of you have voted in that poll. So we will look at the results of that shortly. So your race winner's Max. Banger driver this weekend. And to be honest, mine very much is purely vibes. Because I really want Yuki Tsunoda to have a good send-off. So I'm saying Yuki Tsunoda banger driver. I'm saying Yuki Tsunoda gets in and amongst it and plays a role and has a banger. Because I really need this to happen. Because I'm just so gutted for how it's played out. He put there was some punchy words that Autosport were talking about earlier, where he was like, he feels like he's been the closest to Max of anyone, and he's not been in the sessions where it's counted. Ultimately, 0.6 on average down from Max. It has not been a good season from Yuki Tsunoda, but I'm hopeful. I'm trying to manifest a final uptick in Yuki coin where, you know, it can peak and then we can all cash out and not lose all our money, right? Come on, Yuki. One last roll of the dice. Please. 3 practice sessions, unless someone's sitting in his car for FP1, which I don't actually know about. Maybe. We'll see. Hopefully not, because then he can lock it in and smash it. Come on, Yuki. You got your P4 here in 2021. A P4 here in 2025 would be clutch. Almost certainly would be clutch from a championship point of view. Come on, Yuki. As for you, your banger drive is Max Verstappen. You've gone for him race winner, 53%, and banger drive, 27%, 16% Lando Norris, 11% Oscar Piastri, 11% Yuki Tsunoda. Some of you get it. 11% of you get it. Okay. 11% of you get it. Lindblad is in for Yuki. Yeah, because Lindblad was in for Verstappen in Mexico, wasn't he? Because that's where he actually went quicker than Yuki. There were different run plans, but he went quicker than Yuki in FP1. So Lindblad is in for Yuki in FP1, which makes sense. Makes sense. But still, he's still got FP2 and FP3, okay? And Lindblad will do great work in prepping that car. I still believe, okay? I still believe. Banger drive, Max, for you. Fair. Clanger drive for me. 10-second penalty to Esteban Ocon. He's struggled as of late. It wasn't a good quality relative to Ollie again in Qatar. However, kind of a little bit of a Uno reverse jinx trying to go on here, because I really want Haas to get P7 in the constructors. So I'm just hoping that, Esteban sees this maybe and it inspires him to find some performance. But we'll see. Not so confident on that one. With Esteban, Clanger, your Clanger. And you've gone Lando, 35% of the vote. You keep going for Lando as Clanger. I know I know the sentiment. The sentiment doesn't want Lando to win it. And it is reflected in the results. 17% Hamilton, 7% Tsunoda, 6% Stroll. Then banger team, Alpine, because why not? Anything can happen. Colapinto point. That's what I'm saying. Banger team Alpine, because why not? I've got to try. It's going to happen at some point. They're going to have a banging weekend. It might be in 2029, but why not? Why not? And then your banger team is Red Bull, 31% of the vote, 30% Mercedes, 17% McLaren, 11% Will.i.ams. And then finally, clanger team, I've gone Ferrari because Ferrari, I don't need to explain why. And you've gone McLaren, 35%, which, I mean, if the last 2 weekends speak to anything, then it's not a bad shout. So, yeah, you've gone Max, Lando, Red Bull, McLaren. I've gone Oscar, Yuki, Esteban, Alpine, Ferrari. So we are all different, which is simply lovely. And we will reflect upon these predictions in the post-race CHINWAG on Sunday night. Mate, I'm excited. I'm buzzing. I'm happy. I'm wishing for something decent. Now, plan for Sunday, Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I'm not going to string the whole race, but what I plan to do is to have a stream and start my stream maybe like 10 laps before the end. Then have my little live, talk it in, you know, cover the race. I want to build these CHINWAGs for the rewatchability because I know most of you don't catch these live. So I think starting 10 minutes from the end, I'll have the live timings up on screen. I'll work out a way of doing that. And maybe I'll record my earlier reactions like the start of the race and chuck that in as well. Maybe we'll see. Something along those lines I think could be fun. I don't want to do a full race one. I just want to kind of do that, capture that moment. You know, once the race finishes, we'll have our champion, spend 20 minutes or so covering that and just keep it as a nice little 30-minute, just capturing that end. Do that. Then later on, 4 or 5 hours after that, I will do a proper post-race CHINWAG where we'll talk about all of the teams and everything, right? Because I feel like it justifies a dedicated piece, watch live, capture it, boom, out of them 3. Just focus on them 3, not really talk about anyone else. And see how it plays out. How much are you craving it? Is that Glock moment from the Camping Dutchman? I mean, there's so many sick ways this could go. But what I'll probably do, I'll probably record myself watching lap 1, like if it's something crazy, and then I'll maybe like cut that and then put that as a video and then play that in my actual stream. I've got an idea in my mind. We'll see how it plays out. So thank you all for joining me. Let's reflect on this poll then. 2,109 of you have voted. So that's a pretty decent sample size. Who will win the 2025 F1 World Championship? 8% of you say Oscar Piastri. So what time is it in Isn't it like 4? Isn't it 5 in the morning in Melbourne? Some of you are awake. It's a long shot for Oscar, but never say never. 8% of you say Oscar Piastri. 42% of you say Max Verstappen, which means 50% of you think Lando Norris is going to win the 2025 F1 World Championship. It's mad that in the last race, 12-point advantage, and only half of you think Lando's actually going to win the title. But you look at the rate at which Max has been chomping away points-wise, and then you're like, yeah, maybe. This is sick. It's been a long time. Since 21, really. So we've had this level of like, oh my God, this is so sick. Going into the final race of the season. I'm absolutely here for it. And it does add up to 100% finally. Exactly, Burkosaurus. Exactly, Burkosaurus. I am buzzing for this. I'm absolutely buzzing for it. I'm just going to print screen, actually, that little... the poll, just in case I need to reference that at another point. I'll just get that print screen. Lovely jubbly. Right. Thank you all for joining me in this 55-minute pre-race CHINWAG. We'll get in under an hour. because, you know, we've all got things to do. And, oh, shout out Joseph, by the way. Joseph, I bumped into Joseph today at Tesco. Lovely lad. Good chatting. Let me make sure I haven't missed any super chats. Amy, hello from Abu Dhabi. Come on, Max. Well, you know where Amy's repping. If we see some Max flans, it might... Flags? Oh my God, I can't speak. Hello from Abu Dhabi. Come on, Max. Well, hope you have a good weekend, Amy. And I hope for you that Max gets it done. I hope for Oscar fans that he gets it done. I hope for Lando fans that he gets it done. My prediction as well, I'll leave you with that. My prediction is that Oscar Piastri wins the race, but he's not 2025 F1 World Champion. I think Oscar wins the race, but I think Lando will be champion. That is my prediction. That is what I think will happen, but we will see. Thank you all for joining me. TFL, Kev, Spark, Dumda, Rainer, Lou, Vital Plays, Concept, Lotus, IDK, 60, OK, Schroeder, Barv, Lowell, Josh, Tina, Ricardo, Alif PR, NK McFrin, Cully, Emerald, McFillan, Hermit, Hop Hayes, Cian, Ali Bros, Acing, Francine, Max, Alternate, Dex Mense, Fred, Digital Golby, Crazy Catman, Cindy, Patrick, Tank, and the rest of you. A pleasure as always. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.